Hey everyone, my name is Alan Dick, and on behalf of my fellow Commerce Next co-founders, Scott Silverman and Veronica Sonsev, I want to welcome you to today's webinar. Today is Wednesday, November 17th, 2021, and our topic this week, a new year, a new e-commerce reality, differentiating through digital experience. Before we go any further, I'd like to welcome and thank today's speakers. First off, Joe Milano. He's the SVP, Global Digital and Customer Experience at Kate Spade, New York. Christine Monahan, the VP of Digital at Astral Brands. Sabrina Cherubini, the SVP of Brand and Digital Marketing at Hanky Panky. And Marilyn Montoya, the VP of Marketing at AB Tasty. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to bring them all, we'll bring them all up here in just a minute. Also want to thank our webinar sponsor, AB Tasty, for making this possible. Certainly appreciate their support and helping us keep these events open to everyone who wants to view them. We also have a gifting partner in Gift Now. And as always, I've neglected to tell our panelists that they're going to receive a free gift from Gift Now, as well as 5 lucky audience members will also receive a gift. We'll draw them after the event and notify you by email. And sorry about that, replay listeners. You got to be here live when we're doing it. All right, agenda time. So let's go over it. We're going to show you where you can find some more Commerce Next content. We got a bunch of stuff for you. Do the housekeeping notes to make certain you get the most out of the webinar. Marilyn's then going to show you some example about how brands differentiate themselves by improving their digital experience. Got some audience polls, and then we're going to spend the bulk of our time in the panel discussion. First off, let's talk about our next webinar. We're going to skip the next couple of weeks for Thanksgiving and Cyber Monday, but we'll be back on Wednesday, December 8th with a Cyber Week recap, lessons learned, and advice for 2022. This is a continuation of last year's final webinar of the season for us. We had Jason Goldberg, the Chief Commerce Strategy Officer at Publicis, come in. It was very well received. Jason always has a lot of great stuff to talk about. It's going to be a solid one. So very much looking forward to having him join us. Can't get enough of us? Of course you can't. So we've got a couple of podcasts for you. First off, latest podcast, we've got Stephen Young, the CMO of Poshmark. He's going to be talking about changing times, leadership, and the post-COVID customer. That's going to be presented by Wunderkind. We also have another podcast we just dropped. It's exclusive Commerce Next Holiday 2021 research. This is with Sucharita Kodali. She's the VP and Principal Analyst over at Forrester. That one's presented by Bloomreach. What we decided to do is we've dropped that research into the handouts here. So there's a little extra bonus for everybody. You can kind of get a lead on that. Moving along, had you missed any of our past events, we put the replays up on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. That's over at youtube.com, Commerce Next. Got almost 200 videos there from all of our past conferences and webinars. Tons of great stuff over there as well. So please check that out as well. All right, let's do some housekeeping. Don't worry about missing anything. We're recording this webinar and we're going to make it available by tomorrow. Let me take a moment to show you where everything is on your screen so you can get the most out of this. First off, take a look in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. You're going to see 4 buttons up there: Chat, Q&A, Polls, and Handouts. This is where you guys can interact with our speakers or download information. Chat button, that's if you want to chat with with other members of the audience, or you kind of want to throw in a quick comment, please put your comments there. Q&A, we live on this stuff. One of the best things that can happen is when the audience gets engaged and you guys ask questions. We love when you do that. That's why the speakers are here. That's why we're doing it. If you've got a question, put it into Q&A. The great part about that is that there's an upvote button. And so even if you have not asked a question, you can upvote the questions you like. That clues us in as to which ones we should make certain that the panelists get to before we run out of time. When you enter that, there's a field in the lower right-hand part of your screen that you can do that. We also have our handouts section. We have 4 handouts there today. We have the slides. We have a couple of handouts from AB Tasty. And we also have the research report we were just talking about. If you're watching this on the replay, thanks for joining us. And by the way, if you're looking for those handouts, they're going to be in the handout document. Just click on that and we'll bring all of those up. With that, let me bring on Marilyn Montoya. She's a VP of Marketing at AB Tasty. Hey, Marilyn, how's it going?
Hi, Alan.
Where are you dialing in from this wonderful day?
Well, actually, it's 8 p.m. here in Paris. I'm based out of Paris, so
yeah, I
a
know.
little bit darker.
Horrible to be in Paris. just atrocious that you have to suffer being in such a wonderful city. Well, thank you
Exactly.
so much for staying up late and joining us. Let's turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. So, everyone, thank you for joining me today and joining us on this webinar. I'm going to dive right in. So, just a little bit about AB Tasty and who we are. We are a experience optimization and feature management company. We started off as a CRO about 10 years ago, a CRO agency focusing on optimization practices. And over the years, we invested more in our technology. And today, we're a full SaaS service company with a few products under our belt. So we serve about 900 clients globally. We have about 10 offices across the globe and some major customers as well. So personalization, I think that everybody would agree that it's something that we want to do. Users expect it. They get frustrated when content is not personalized to them. And also, we can see it in the research and in the data that when you do bring relevant content to a user or a customer, a visitor, they're more likely to spend. So this is, I don't think news to most of you. We also have this context that you're probably very well aware of, ITP2, with the cookie blocking. So, first party data now being a primary source of data acquisition. You have consumer empowerment. Thanks to those technology evolutions, but also policy evolutions. And so today it creates a context in which optimized experiences are necessary in order to avoid users and visitors and customers leaving your digital asset, and also personalization, very important as a value proposition in order to get someone to exchange their personal information with you to receive a better experience. And so the context, it just means that today customers expect a lot more out of brands. Before it was okay to just be present. Now it's necessary to go beyond and really try to predict what customers will want to see, what they'll expect to see and experience on digital. However, it's not an easy thing to do, right? There are many challenges around being great at digital. So, just from the technical point of view, it's complex to manage. You have a lot of data to manage from different sources. You have tech. Roadmaps and legacy technology, old tech stacks that aren't adapted to be agile, to move quickly, and of course, it's costly to manage. All the technical components that are involved in creating these better experiences. So, well, what does AB Tasty say? Well, of course, data privacy and governance is something that needs to be managed. So we work very closely with CDP partners such as Telium here in an example. And what's important is to make sure that we're managing consent, right? So that uh, there's a value proposition being presented to the user, to the visitor, to the customer at the point of contact where they're exchanging their personal information, but they're getting something in return, a better experience. Logging that information, making sure you know which users you can personalize for, and then making sure that that's personalized across those different channels, right? So the ecosystem here that I present, and here's just an example also with Telium, which is a close partner of ours. But as you can see, on the left side, the data sources centralized, and then being able to act on, those insights that you gather from a user or a visitor or a customer that has made a purchase, and in which you have some level of consent, and then being able to act on, the information you have on that particular user, whether you're talking about activating an advertising campaign, email, or just the experience they receive when they go visit your site after a previous action. So we're really focused on that, fourth part there on the bottom right, the action and the result. How do you act on the intelligence and the data that you have once you manage the data, once you've structured your segments, once you have that consent? What can you actually do to take that digital experience further and really delight the customer in their shopping or browsing experience or service experience? So, what we do is we help companies remove technology as a barrier. And we have a philosophy about allocating scope to different teams and aligning teams within an organization in order to be able to better adapt to the tech needs that the company may have. So, for example, having marketing teams being able to easily make changes on a brand asset, such as a website or an application, being able to be reactive and proactive on what needs to be changed, whether it's real time data that they're receiving on a specific customer segment that has a high lifetime value, and they can implement something in the short term versus a more long term custom build. For example, having product teams building out very specific features or very specific experiences for the website, for an application, that may be targeted, for example, to high LTV audiences, in which obviously it's much more worthwhile to invest, right, and to build out an experience that goes beyond what you would do maybe in a standard audience. So the idea here is really about separating those roles, making sure that everybody's working on short term and long term, digital technology management, whether it's the website and app, and then being able to deliver those experiences. So this is, of course, very theoretical. Don't want to spend too much time on this, but let's look at a real practical application. So just to, make a note about this slide here, it's really about, once you are implementing that experience on your digital brand assets, whether you're talking about the kind of immediate short-term campaigns, seasonal campaigns versus longer term feature development, such as testing payment methods or delivery methods or different things that you want to provide for specific user segments, being able to feed that data back into your CDP, back to your data, where you can have more information and get more learnings from those audiences that you're investing in and you're testing, right? So it's really about that test and learn and being able to reintegrate those learnings back into the loop so you have that information available to you when you're experimenting and testing and personalizing later on. So let's look at some low tech examples. And what I mean by low tech, this means examples of personalization and optimization practices that are not complex, that you don't need necessarily technical teams, or you don't need to code heavily on your website, that can be done by a marketing team without necessarily having to resort to very long roadmaps or a lot of development. So the idea here, and just to give you an example of a customer of ours, they wanted to personalize, but also optimize the experience for sale customers. So it's a very specific segment of theirs that is important for them and that only shop during sale season or during the time that the brand has sales. But they wanted to understand the customer a little bit more, what was driving their behavior for shopping and for making purchases. And so they decided to test the personalization here for that specific customer segment. And one was stressing urgency and the other one was stressing the depth of the discount. And as you can see, there was a difference in performance on the AOV and the transaction rate with these two different messages. So now they learned something new, that sale customers are more sensitive to the urgency aspect of the sale than the depth of the discount. So this information, now that it's known and tested, well, it's implemented onto the website, but then that data is also sent back to be able to be used later. And I stress here that these kinds of changes are made in drag and drop, no dev, just very easy configuration. So that means you can have a high impact in a short amount of time without having to develop a lot. Here's another example. So this brand wanted to differentiate new users versus returning users. They wanted to test and see what appetite they had for different content, what should be the first thing they see when they arrive on the website. And so they tested these different variations. And what they were able to see is that here they had the brand department that wanted to push a branding video, but of course, e-commerce wanted to push their new releases, their new product line that they've released. And so they were testing the impact of these different elements on the web page and testing, okay, what would drive more page views, conversion, checkout, etc. And in this particular example, they found that combining the brand video with an immediate module where you can browse the products directly had a higher performance overall on those three KPIs. So again, this is something that was implemented on drag and drop. You know, they were able to track different KPIs, not just conversion, but page views and also browsing and just AOV. And so it's an example of, a customization or personalization that was done for a very specific audience segment. So only in this case, returning users were given this configuration versus, visit new users that were just arriving on the website. So then we move on to high complexity examples, and this is further down the line, and this is what we mean about separating roles between these two different teams. Here we're talking really about driving personalization experiences, maybe on native applications or even on the website itself, but that go deeper and are more time consuming, require more resources. But at that point, you're customizing for very specific segments that will have a return on investment. So here's an example. Of course, there's some code because these types of manipulations are code based, and they're cross channel, so you can do it on website, on your app, and you're able to test different things. So whether you're testing an offer, if there's a client that or customer that usually buys something, or usually has a certain behavior, of course you can adapt to that behavior, make sure that the mobile app is the same as the website experience, and that you can customize those campaigns in a more standard and across the board way. So that's the advantage of doing the more high complexity personalization, is that it's deeper, you can do it cross channel, and you can do things that are a little bit more sophisticated for the audiences that you want to address. And that's it. So I hope that was interesting for all of you. It was really, really quick, but I really wanted to kind of cover the scope of what some of the things we're able to do here at ABTC.
You move like lightning, like lightning. So, yeah, so I asked for questions, and ask and ye shall receive. We've got our first one from Ashok, who's dialing in from India. So
Oh.
thank you for that long distance dedication there. He or she asks, "Hello, Marilyn. What about site search optimization in this part? Got any thoughts on site search optimization?"
Yeah, so actually, we work closely with different partners such as Algolia, which are leaders in the search space. So we do have ways to be able to test algorithms. So this is something that's done on the server side. So it's the part of the more complex experimentation. But yes, we can definitely test search algorithms. We can test different configurations and see which one is working better. So if you have two search engines or two search models, you don't know which one is the best one, you can definitely run a test and see with your users which one is driving more impact.
All right, perfect. All right, so Marilyn, I'm going to have you go to the back of the class here for just a second while we do some polling. All right, here we go. Question number 1. How do you collect data for all of your personalization efforts? Select all that apply. Do you encourage sign up and log in online? Do you have in-store engagement with digital tools? Inferred based on browsing and shopping behaviors? How about on-site quizzes and questions? Do you purchase third-party data for life events or something else? And by the way, if you do something else in this, anytime we ask for other, love it when people put it in the chat. It just helps stimulate conversation and ideas. So we just love when people do that. Question 1, how do you collect data for your personalization efforts? Let's see how this is doing here. All right, so it looks like number 1 is encourage sign up and log in online with 36%. 29% was inferred based on browsing and shopping behaviors. Coming in third was in-store engagement with digital tools at 16%. Interestingly enough, we asked this last week. We had a lot of loyalty folks on our webinar, and it's about the same. It was 42% last week for encourage sign up and log in online. It was number 1 again here, although we do see that that inferred based on browsing and shopping behaviors picked up a little bit this time. So pretty much the same. I kind of expected that, but I just wanted to confirm it. Let's go to our next question. What is preventing you from improving your user experience? You can select all that apply. Is it that your team is at capacity, your technology can't support it, creative can't keep up, other, or nothing. We've got this down. And it's looking to be, I don't want to say a three-way tie, but team is at capacity is definitely up there at 35%, and the tech can't support it's at 33. Creative can't keep up. That's not surprising at 28%. One person is very confident. They got experience down pat. Good for them. All right, let's close that one out. And so definitely team is at capacity is 35%, tech can't support it's 33, and creative cannot keep up. Now, we asked this very same question 4 months ago. And on that one, we noticed that it was team is at capacity was 53%. Right now, it's only 35%. So at least with this audience, it's not so much a team issue for this audience. It seems more like the technology can't support it and creative can't keep up. Definitely jumped. So that's very interesting. I'm glad to see that. All right, let's close that one out. Finally, question number 3. If you're running a personalization program, are you using client-side data, server-side data, or a combination of both? While we're waiting for the answers to come in, Colleen Water commented that they recently started on-site questions and quizzes, and the results have been eye-opening. So thank you, Colleen, for that. Always great to get those additional ideas in. So very interesting. If you're running a personalization program, 53% of you are saying combination of both client and server side. 37% are using front-end or client-side data, and 11% are using server-side or back-end data. Very good. All right, let's close that out. Let's bring on the panel. Hey, everyone.
Hello.
All right.
Hi.
Thanks for joining us today. How about we go through and have everyone introduce themselves? Christy, why don't you go first?
Sure. My name is Christy Monahan. I work with Astral Brands. We're a family of health and beauty brands, pure cosmetic skincare, Alouette. Excuse me. So we have been very in-depth in personalization for quite some time, and I'm really excited about today's opportunity to discuss it.
All right, Joe, you're next.
Hi, Joe Milano. I lead global digital and customer experience for Kate Spade. Background is primarily e-com, digital, marketing, merch, tech, you name it, probably been part of it, small to big. Currently, though, at Kate, we are a lifestyle brand, really focused on bringing joy to our customer.
Awesome. And Sabrina.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sabrina Cherubini. I joined Hanky Panky as SVP of Brand and Digital 5 weeks ago, so I'm a new one. I come from large corporations in apparel, in the apparel business. Hanky Panky I joined because it's a premium underwear brand with a huge and strong purpose, female-led, employee-owned, made in the US. It's a great story to tell, so I'm excited about that.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for that. So Sabrina, I'm going to stick with you. In your experience, what do you think makes or defines a great site experience?
I think that's a broad question, but the way I'm seeing it, because that's a question I asked myself since I started, is to me, the first thing is, what is the first impression you make? Brand identity, brand expression, what are the emotions that I'm creating or evoking when someone comes to my website? Personalization, I'm a huge fan, and I went through, ramping up personalization for big apparel brands. I want to understand the psychology and make sure that I am I'm using personalization in a way that triggers her own behavior, what she's looking for, and make it easy for her to navigate through the website. Really believe, women have something else to do than just spending hours trying to find what they're looking for. So I would say personalization and emotions.
Christy, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'm going to kind of lay out what everyone's general thoughts are on this and how your sites are embracing it, and then we're going to start digging into some more of the specifics. So, Christy, you're next.
Sure. So, I think for a great site experience, it has a foundation of the essence of the brand, the true essence of the brand, what we're really trying to accomplish and have the relationship with the consumer. And then I believe it's continuing to listen to that consumer constantly through testing and providing value added experiences, if that's quizzes, if that's tools and other things to create a deeper relationship with the customer, and continuing to grow that both that time and then through each successive experience, because we try to build a lifetime customer, not simply the one-time customer.
Mm-hmm. And Joe, I'll let you wrap up that question.
Well, I think similar to what Sabrina and Christy just shared. Yeah, I think at the core, it has to convey, who you are and who you meant to be in order for the brand to be successful. But I think digging deeper, for me, it's really about being customer centric as it relates to that experience and having empathy for that customer and understanding how they want to engage with you as it relates to your branding or digital experiences. And so I think, kind of funny how this is the topic, but personalization, right? And I think, no two people are identical, but I think that there's a way to go about it that really allows the customer to engage with the digital brands in a way that really resonates with them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot of controversy in any of those comments. We certainly want to make certain that we're relevant to the people that are coming onto our site. But I want to kind of dig into it a little bit more. I want to think about, like, one thing you constantly hear is about how you want to replicate the in-store experience online. And I think this is where we started seeing some divergence on the panel and some different thoughts than what I've typically heard. I'd like to know, Joe, to what extent is it important to replicate an in-store experience online, and how do you provide that your customers with those experiences if, in fact, it is relevant?
It's a great question, Alan. So what it's funny if I go way back. Some of the original projects and companies I worked with. That was what thought about it. How do we take it and make it a one for one? Like, how do we take the salesperson or the stylist in the store and like bring that into the digital landscape? Or, how do we take, hey, you see all these products in the windows. What is that window, right? I think, my philosophy has shifted, right? And it's not a one for one. It's not a replication. I think it's an approximation of what that experience should be and how it should come to life digitally. Because there is value in terms of somebody recommending products to you. There is value in someone, really sharing an opinion. But those things look and feel different in the digital platform, and they don't have to necessarily be one for one, right? So if you think about walking into a store and having to walk to the back to find something, when you're online, it shouldn't be that difficult, right? The whole point is, from a digital platform perspective, you can have speed, you can get to what you need in a faster, more efficient way. It's not to say that you have to, but you have the optionality. And I think, as I look at, what in-store to online means, I really do believe it's about how do you approximate what that experience should look and feel like, depending on who that customer is and what their
Mm-hmm.
purpose is for actually visiting you that day.
Yeah, excellent. Christy, you had some thoughts on this. I think you were kind of thinking about the paradox of choice, I think is the polite way of putting it. I think you had a different term for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I absolutely agree with Joe. The digital is really an extension opportunity for the customer, and how they interact in digital is really different than how they interact in store generally, and it should be, because it's just a different medium. But what I was speaking to specifically is during COVID, where all of the stores were shut down. As a beauty brand, we were really asked to bring all of those experiences, or as many as we could, directly onto our sites. And we really struggled with the language, because you cannot, as Joe points out, and anyone that's gone through it, you cannot use the same language that a store associate would use online. It simply doesn't work. And that's been, and really working and partnering with the brands to get them to that conclusion that, and this is the reason why testing is so important, that creating that experience, that rich experience digitally, it doesn't have to be the same to be a rich experience that truly honors the brand. And that's where we really want to go to it, as well as the other thing that we've really struggled with is adding many tools when we don't have any store experiences. And obviously, we're fortunate that that's back now. But matching foundation for skin type is a complicated thing in the beauty industry. And that's where we really get to the kind of the toothpaste style thing, because you can't really present every single thing to somebody to actually get them to an answer. I think you have to give them the simplest answer and then allow them to discover additional answers. And I think that creates a richer experience for the customer.
Can you talk a little bit more? You mentioned that the language in store may be different than what you use online. Do you have a specific example in mind on that? I'm curious if you could dig into that just slightly more, if
Sure.
anything comes to mind.
I mean, I think I'd love to use your example in our conversation about automobiles. I mean, I could use beauty products, but I think perhaps automobiles may have a broader understanding here. But explaining how much you can actually fit in the back of a truck and showing a picture of the back of the truck and giving the size of the truck bed, it just doesn't really, match. I mean, you would do a better job with putting, 12 dogs in the back of the pickup truck so you could see just how large it is, which is something you clearly would not do in a showroom. Well,
It's a great example. It's a great example.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I was mentioning that I was looking at trucks the other day, and I was very frustrated with one major U.S. manufacturer's website, whom I used to sell for when I was even very young, many years ago in my misspent youth, and we did a much better job of explaining things than that website will ever do. So I definitely feel the frustration of language and that example. Cool. Sabrina, you had some thoughts related to some of the COVID induced functionalities that came on. I think we were talking about the personal stylist and video appointments. Do you want to throw a little color on that question?
It is just I'm personally trying to reflect on what we've done during COVID, and we're still in it right now. But I think at the beginning, and that's my perception, is we all try to do the same things, right? We try to get these virtual appointment online. We try to create these like virtual styling events and all of these things. And we were very proud of ourselves at the beginning, like how fast I did it, 6 weeks, and everyone was happy with that. I'm so happy we have a different conversation right now and really try to understand it from a customer perspective. Like, honestly, I did it for big brands. Yeah, it's exciting, but we don't have any reference, right? So yes, great. We booked 500 appointments in a month. Great. Is it driving our business or our brand? I have no idea. Now thinking about, really like the customer itself, like when she comes to a store, like what is she looking for? And that's what a store associate does, is like understanding very quickly who she's talking to, what's the occasion, what is she struggling with, how can she help? And like that is personalization on site, is like being able to recognize who's coming, being able to make it easy for her. Like the big challenge in apparel is fit, right? So fit to proportions. How do you make it easy for her to understand how this product fits on her? That's what the store associates will do. They will bring, you the right fit and the flattering silhouette for you. Like, how do you do that from a technology perspective, more than just doing, virtual stylist appointment? Does she have time for that? So it's an ongoing process right now.
Marilyn, I see you nodding your head. Let me bring you back into the conversation. I'm sure you have a thought or two on what's been said.
Yeah, I really appreciate this comment, because I think often when we talk about experience innovation, we get, we think of these crazy ideas of things that we should do. Yes, we should have a concierge booking appointments. We should do all these amazing VR things. And I think it really goes back to, I think, what you were saying, Sabrina and Christy. You were saying you need to understand the psychology of the customer. You need to understand what they are trying to achieve on the website at that point, and it's not exactly the way that you would answer that in a store. And the innovation or the technology or the features or the experience you want to create really has to be aligned to what they're trying to achieve, that is difficult to achieve on digital. So in the case of lingerie, for example, the silhouette, that's really important. Like, how is it going to look on me? That's something that is difficult to imagine online. So if there is some innovation there, I think that makes more sense for the brand and for the customer than to say, let's book appointments or have personal concierge.
Marilyn,
and that's why I think it's interesting.
I agree with you, Marilyn. I think, but what I believe is I think we should allow customers to self-select. Some customers want to interact, with someone virtually. Let's show them the opportunity and allow them into it versus pushing it. Let's let them pull that.
Well, actually, there's a testing. I mean,
and testing
about let's care about the silhouette, but maybe they do want the concierge, and then that's where you
But
can figure out
that's
who wants what.
Absolutely.
beauty
You're
of
right. It's a
digital.
perfect test. Yes.
You have the flexibility with digital. It can morph into whatever
Exactly.
you need it to be for that customer. I mean, going back to your dog example, not to back, but like, I no, I love that because it's one of the things that we think about with our handbag business in terms of like what fits, how does it fit. In store, you can walk in, you can drop a bunch of stuff in, but how do you, what we thought about is how do you build that online? And so, we found a partner that actually allowed to be illustrated. Does an iPad fit in there? Does an iPhone, a computer, what fits in your wallet? Is and it really, it resonates incredibly well with our customer.
I completely agree with you, Joe. Sabrina, I was curious. Do you think that digitally you have an advantage for the try-on opportunity? Because I can tell you, as a woman, I personally don't love trying on lingerie, especially not in one of those fluorescent
Yes,
rooms
that's
where
the
no
lit.
one looks good.
I so agree with you. Like, who never experienced being in the fitting room and having the store associates come in and just like, how does it fit? Just
I
like,
mean,
don't
really, it's
do
an
that.
exercise in that self-esteem. Just walk into one of those places and try that on.
But the thing is that is so exciting because lingerie is what is the most intimate for you, right? It's really touch your body, really touch your like inner voice also a lot. So there is a lot of psychology in it, which I found really exciting. The thing that I keep thinking about is, to your point, is just you have to understand where she comes from. So it's funny, it's like apparel. You go on a website and you have petite plus. And like, is she a petite in lingerie? Really? Like, they all have petite. Like, what is a petite when we're
I
talking
totally
about
hear you.
underwear, right?
But that swimsuit company that lets you buy 7 and send back 6, there's a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have some work to do. But I agree with you. The opportunity is huge.
Awesome. Yeah, what one learns on a webinar. So, yeah, let's go to some of the audience questions here. James Simon, he wants to make this a little bit more philosophical, and I'm never opposed to that. His question. Is differentiating through digital experience mean meeting existing customer needs? Is there value in building novel experiences that wow customers? I mean, is it just great to kind of blow their minds and leave it at that? Or, does it always mean meeting a specific need? That's a toss-up question. Anyone can grab for it.
I'll grab it because I like that.
Joe.
I like that question. I think there is room, right, to build dialogue experiences, right? But I think it's all about allocation in terms of how you think about resourcing and investing, right? And at the end of the day, if you're disproportionately, going the route of novel, well, I think you're missing the mark, right? Because the majority of your engagement is going to happen, either with people something about, or people that are for actually shopping and trying to actually satisfy a need of some sort. So I think when you think about novel experience, if you're doing the novel experience at the expense of actually driving revenue, I think that's a miss, because you can use that revenue base to continue to reinvest in creating some of those experiences. But make sure that you then are setting up the proper way to measure them. If your expectation is that wow experience is going to drive something for you, well, you're probably going to be disappointed the majority of the time.
Yeah, I also have a thought. I mean, we're trying a new loyalty program approach where we're asking our highest value customers, our most cherished customers, kind of what would wow them. Here are some examples. What are things that you would love? How are things that we could surprise you, to create a different type of loyalty program where we're not simply handing over points, but trying to create unique experiences. So I'm not sure if that helps or not, but kind of working with your customers, asking them, essentially crowdsourcing an answer, gives you an opportunity to understand what might make sense to invest. To Joe's point, because simply investing in wow, it may not necessarily wow, but then you've lost some opportunity dollars for some other opportunities.
But maybe to your point, Christine, like engaging the customer, I'm not sure you will get what you need with this survey, because I tried many times and she's like, give me a fashion show online. Great. It's always the same answers, right? So, but the fact is, like, what could be also your customer service, right? It could be how you translate your brand vision down to your voice, and like how customer service is apprehended. And That is like, I know brands that really wowed me from a customer experience perspective and customer service. I'm loyal for life.
No,
And
I
I think
agree.
that's a work experience.
It's the simple stuff that really people
Yeah.
remember.
It is.
100%.
Yeah. Yes. I will totally agree with that. I've got a couple of brands I can instantly think of where they just went way over above and beyond. You're like, I am absolutely buying from them forever. That's it. And you don't have to spend anything more on me, and I will free up all kinds of mistakes. Marilyn, you ready to jump in there? I'm certain you've got 300 examples of
Well,
wow moments that worked or didn't.
I think my point of view is more on justifying that investment, and like if you're going to invest in a wow experience, I think as Joe, as you said, you have to kind of have an idea of how you want to calculate the impact of that, and um, I think that you should always be building something for somebody specifically. So the way I see it is that if you're going to invest in creating something wow that you think is wow, or you've researched your audience enough to understand this is something that they'd probably like, then I think it's worth it. And I think because it will help build that loyalty. And I think Sabrina and Christy, both of you are getting to the customer service part. I think that's where you have a lot of pain. Usually from a customer experience, that's where something goes wrong, or you have to change a product, or there was an issue. And I think it's at that point as well where people don't usually look at for innovation, but like where you can have a tremendous impact, because having a great experience when something goes wrong, or like when you need help, I think that can really influence how you view that brand in the future. Like, wow, they responded quickly, they addressed this for me in one day, I got the answer right away, or they immediately swapped my product for a better one, they didn't, they gave me an extra whatever to compensate. And I think there's innovation there as well.
No, I totally hear you. Funny. I've like Joe, I guess I've sold everything in e-commerce. And at one point I was selling sneakers, right? And so sneaker releases, I don't know if anyone knows anything about sneaker releases, but they're highly coveted. They're sold on eBay for thousands of dollars if you don't get them. And in talking about listening to your customer, we'd surveyed the customers, and they had some issues with trust, right? Especially with high sneaker releases, because they felt that all the resellers were getting them, that the regular Joe was never able to get them, and that the entire world was unfair. So what we did essentially is we put in a queuing system online as well as in the store, and we're like, okay, this is exactly how many this is what we have. And here's the queue. And if you were in the queue and if you got the queue, then you were guaranteed. And then after that number, then basically we advised them that, there might be another opportunity later, and we gave them other cross sells, but it actually was a huge success. And funny enough, Nike actually signed up for the software 3 weeks later, but we beat Nike for that one. But the idea is the same, right? That we listened to the customer, we heard their concern, and it was actually not a complicated thing to solve the question. But it had huge repercussions. Like, people still talk about it to this day. Like, we put one of the rappers, and we had him dance while people were waiting in queue. So it went viral for a while. But the idea, I think, is just listening and then doing what you can to help the customer, and just be customer centric wherever you can.
Yeah, it dovetails into the question I was going to ask you next, was how do you know when you're providing a good user experience? How do you locate the problem areas? And I think I want Sabrina to kind of come in there, and you had some thoughts on that as to where to find those problem areas. I'll also add that one of the mental experiments I think is interesting to apply to a given situation is to kind of identify what you know you don't know, and then try to figure out how would I locate the unknowns that I don't even know about, the stuff that is just completely lost to me. Sorry if I'm using the Donald Rumsfeldian thought pattern there, but I think it's useful as a mental exercise. So Sabrina, I'll ask you that. How do you find the problem areas, or how do you know where to look? I'll leave it at that.
That's a great question, because as I just started, I'm wondering, are we offering the right experience? So, something that I always use, because I'm customer obsessed, it's like customer journey mapping, really understanding the different customers we have, trying to really get through our website and the full journey from acquisition to her journey online to like post-purchase life cycles also, and really understand what could be the pain points. Like fit is a huge one that we all have to address, but that is not the only thing. So psychologically, I give you an example, like in lingerie, there are many ways a woman shop. Some will tell you, no, I shop only on fabrics. Like I will never wear lace because it's not comfortable. Some are shopping on fashion or silhouettes. Some will tell you, I would never wear a thong. So like it's really understanding the emotional and psychological drivers when she comes in, and really understand how she's navigating to understand if you're delivering the right thing. And to Chrissy's point just before, just asking your customers. Like we have a loyalty program, we have best customers. Like we're even thinking about, how do we bring them along? Like how do we include them in a very, innovative way? Not just a survey. How can we make sure that they participate? Listen, we're an employee-owned business. It's very unusual to me. Like how can we be like a customer-owned business too? So I see a lot of opportunities go forward.
All right. So I want to pivot just slightly here. Marilyn, we were talking in the speaker prep call. She asked all the retailers, "What's your biggest challenge in getting personalization right?" And that was kind of the reason we wanted to ask that question of the audience. Joe, you had some very definite thoughts about what the challenges were of getting personalization right. Want to share?
Yeah, sure. I mean, when we've looked at this, and I mean, this is not just here at Kate Spade, but I've looked at it across a number of different places I've been along the way, and what I've continued to find is just the sheer amount of content that's needed. At the end of the day, personalization is about either engaging with the right tools, the right content, the right experience based on the varying audience, right? And so when you think about it that way, what resonates with me might not resonate with Marilyn or with Christy or with you. And so how do I make sure that I have enough stuff, whether that's content, whether that's changing the way something looks, feels, changing the way it's worded? All of those things matter, right? When you're talking about engaging from a digital perspective, and they can be really, really small things. It can be changing the button language from 2 words to 1 word. It can be that simple, and we've seen it be that simple. But when you think about trying to do that at scale, you need a lot of content, and especially because you don't know most of the people that are coming in, especially not for the majority of retailers that I've ever spoken to. And so having the ability to have a ton of that stuff requires a lot of people producing a lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Well, you saw the team at capacity was another huge issue, and I would certainly think that in this era of, no one can seem to hire enough folks in the first place. I would think the combination of trying to produce content and have enough people there is just crushing. Christy, I see you nodding. Like,
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's really just, I have to agree with Joe. You need a lot of content, and then you have to be able to kind of rack and stack the opportunities, which is kind of what we do to slate it toward the higher value opportunities, because we don't have the staff or the content to be able to personalize everyone. And I love Marilyn's idea of, like micro segments. I love that. I hope you're okay with me using that. But leveraging micro segments to really optimize that, because the true personalization to go as far as I did when I was at a Nutrisystem is millions and millions of pieces of content. So that's how we do it. And that's obviously a continuous opportunity to be able to get enough content, to run enough tests, to get enough answers to continue to move us forward.
And something that I'm just thinking about as I'm listening to you, I don't know from your experience, but it's also influencing the transformation of the company as a whole. It's not just creative, it's just going into like a real personalization journey. You have to bring everyone along. So sometimes I experience going too fast. Like I was already talking about predictive models, and I just realized, oh my God, we have to like get like 10 steps ahead.
The
So
organization with you. Yeah.
exactly. So it's
Yeah.
influencing and educating your key stakeholders so they embrace it with you, they get excited with you, but at the right pace. And it's very difficult when you come from a digital mindset and a customer mindset to understand that no, the company is not ready yet. So you have to bring it along.
Right.
Yep. We're going to turn to the data here in organization in just a second. We'll get back to the questions from the audience. And again, thank you to our audience so much for asking those questions. I mean, you have a panel of experts here. Please feel free to ask those questions. There's the only bad question is the one you didn't ask. So please keep sending those in. A note to our audience, when we're on the speaker prep call, I always say, please tell me the unvarnished truth. Do you like a question? Do you not like a question? And with that in mind, I'm going to ask Joe this question exactly as I asked it on the prep call. What companies do you think get personalization right, Joe?
I still hate this question.
I know you do.
Yeah, I still hate this question. I really dislike this question, no matter when it's asked. I think a lot of organizations get pieces of this right, and I think saying that somebody gets it right, I think just kind of misses the mark because every organization has a different purpose. The customer engages differently, and so I look at taking inspiration from lots of different places that aren't necessarily in my industry or even in e-commerce sometimes. And because I think honestly, I think we get it right in some ways. We do a lot with language, and we do a lot with being able to customize that across a number of different touch points as it relates to digital journey. And so when I think about what companies get right, I think you have to look at yourself first and say, okay, what are the things that are going to matter to my customer? What are the things that are going to resonate with them first? And then think about how do you create an experience that really tailors what they're looking for to them, like when they're coming to you for a specific purpose. And then thinking about the number of purposes they can come to you for and making sure you have ways to fill those buckets up individually. So I don't think anybody gets it right.
No.
I think a lot of places that get it right, it's really about understanding your customer first.
But I guess the question ultimately really boils down to, where would somebody look for inspiration? What piece do any companies get a piece of it right in your mind?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it, you should look for brands that you admire and you want to engage with, right? That you think are well respected. I mean, yeah, so you could say, yeah, Nike gets it right, and I mean, Lego, Lego
Oh,
gets
yeah.
it right in some places. I'm somebody who drinks a lot of tea. I don't drink coffee really, and so I have places that I shop from that understand me as a customer and know how to appeal to me. So, that inspiration comes from a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts from the panel before we move on to the 900-pound elephant in the room?
Well, I have to agree with Joe. I don't know how many email subscriptions I have in one of my accounts, but I love to actually see, how people interact and what the different Black Friday emails look like and how they do cross sells, whether it's sneakers, tea, socks, it doesn't really matter, bras, because I really think that there's always an opportunity to learn. And then you can figure out how you can bring it into your environment, and it also gives you opportunities to go back to your customers with perhaps not surveys, but other, mini experiences that may or may not, really work for them. And then we can continue to grow from there. It's certainly not going to work for me to do queuing software for a launch at the moment, but is there something else that would work? You see what I mean? So you have to just use your experience and you figure out all the things that will work for your
Test and learn.
Now.
Yeah. Marilyn's smiling. Yeah.
I love to hear that.
Yes, one would assume you would. So the 900-pound elephant, in the room, and this is a question that we've been asking, seeming on every webinar, and you guys kind of hit this from honestly a different perspective than I thought. Was what is the impact, and how are you reacting to the loss of third-party data? And I kind of was expecting to hear kind of the same mantra of, well, we're going to try to get more zero or first-party data. Christy, you had a slightly different thought on that.
Well, I mean, we never really put a whole lot of stock in the third-party dashboards initially. And I don't want to call out the third-party dashboards.
Right.
That's entirely fair, but we have always had our own, first party, zero party, whatever level you'd like to call it, data where we can actually see where our investments are working and how it's working. And we have always used data-driven distribution for the channels so we can actually see what's impactful and what's not. We don't want to just stop Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever simply because of the dashboards. To be honest with you, TikTok doesn't even have that true data that we can see. Yet we know that that's an important thing to test and continue to work with moving forward. So we just continue to use our data, continue to invest, and then we limit and test the investments to see exactly how it's overall impacting our end result. And that's how we've been doing it since I started at Astral, and that's how we're still doing it today. And I'm not happy that we lost those dashboards, because no matter how much I loved or didn't love them, it was nice for them to be there. But we're able to continue working without having that.
Yeah, it seemed that the panel kind of took this in stride. Marilyn, any thoughts on that? I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I'm going to try to speed through one or two more questions here.
I think it makes sense. It's actually, a lot of brands at the beginning were very afraid of this. I think now what a lot of companies have realized is that they're in the best position to gather that data from the customer directly. And it just actually entices the brand to be more creative in the way that they get to know their customer. So, attaining consent, well, there are different ways to go about it other than just putting a standard message that says, do you accept? I think, we have to be more creative now, and that's actually better for the customer and for the brand ultimately. So I think it's actually a very good thing, and it allows brands to actually get to know their customers a lot more.
Good.
And be worth of them sharing their data. So
exactly, we have to deserve the data.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we can't get their data, I don't think we're going to get the transaction. So I think you have to be willing to go the next mile.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like I said, we're getting close to the top of the hour. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, but I thought there was one question, and Joe, I love the way you answered this. I typically ask, how do you get all the elements of your company to work together on improving X? And in this case, it's site experience. And again, I kind of was expecting a certain set of answers, but I thought you had a comment about, well, I'll let you state it. I just thought it was interesting. It was something I hadn't quite heard before.
I think there's a big difference between implicit, explicit signals, right? I think the first thing I always think about, because at the end of the day, you have a lot of different stakeholders in a digital experience. And I think the key is, helping them understand how do you take and put yourself in the customer's shoes? Like, how do you actually reverse, instead of thinking like, here's what we should do versus like, here's what they're telling us they want from us. And when you try to bring people together, you've got to let them see the data and hear from the customer, both, like I said, from an implicit standpoint, right? Which is like, hey, here's what they're saying, but then, like, what is the explicit? Like, what are they actually going and doing at the end? Because that's what really matters. Like, what are they doing? How are they engaging? Because a lot of times you'll hear, I don't, I don't want help finding anything. But the second they engage with somebody in the store, immediately their happiness goes up. Immediately they buy more because you've solved a problem for them. So it's about taking those signals and pulling them together and then helping guide the organization through what the best outcome is going to be.
Yeah, I think what I certainly enjoyed that piece of it. But it's like everyone has an opinion.
Yeah, well, they do. Everyone does have an opinion. When it comes to it, that's where the data is important, right? Because everybody does have an opinion, but at the end of the day, like, we don't run the business on opinion; we run the business on facts.
Yep. And I think that's a good place to stop with the general questions. I know everyone's hiring, so let's do the roundtable. And Christy, why don't you go first? Why don't you tell us what you got open for positions and where people can go to learn more?
Well, we constantly have openings. We have them for, creative and social and everything else. So if someone would like to go to any one of our sites, astralbrands.com, purecosmetics.com, Cosmetics Better London, click on careers. there's plenty there for you. So we encourage you to click and come. We're
All
fun.
right, Joe. Yeah, for fun.
Yeah, we've always got we've got a ton of opportunities, right? Both within the Kate Spade brand, as well as within our sister brands, Coach and Stuart Weitzman, and with our Tapestry Digital Center of Excellence. And so, if you're looking to learn more, would love to have you join the team. Just go to tapestry.com, and you'll be able to learn more.
Sabrina, you're new.
Right,
Maybe you want to have more new people.
Oh my gosh, yes. So like I said, strong growth. So we're structuring the teams. Right now I'm hiring in the creative team, I'm hiring in the brand marketing team, and I'm hiring on the e-com and digital team. So a lot of new roles, but it's really made for those who really want to make an impact and drive a purpose-driven brand. So if you are here, just get to our LinkedIn page.
All right. And Marilyn, the last word is yours.
Yeah, so we have a number of roles as well, as you can imagine, a SaaS company. So we've got marketing, customer marketing roles in the U.S., in Europe, also a bit in the APAC. So if you're interested in traveling or going to a different place,
Living in Paris, yeah.
check us out. We have some product positions as well. So if any product people as well are interested,
That's an unfair advantage, Alan.
It is. It is. It sure beats northeastern Pennsylvania. I'll tell you that much with a giant stick. Yeah, finally got Joe to laugh. It took a whole webinar, but I finally got it. All right. Well, that's it. Speakers, thank you so much. Christy, Joe, Sabrina, Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us today. A special thanks to AB Tasty for making it possible. I'll say to the audience, thank you for joining us. We'll be back on December 8th. Don't forget to download those handouts. If you need anything, you can just email us at founders@commercenext. And with that, wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you back here on the 8th. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you.